Hi, welcome back to 2 Cells 1 Pack.
Today we're going to show you how to do a tire change on the EX30. Now this one is fairly straightforward. We don't actually have to do that much, and this is one of my favorite wheels to do tire changes on. So without further delay, let's go about it. These are the tools you'll need to do a tire change. A 3, 4, and 5 mm hex, a Phillips PH2 screwdriver, the tire valve core remover, as well as the tire spoons. Now that all the air is removed from the suspension, if you're using this table, this is what I like to do. Now this is the benefit of having this table, is I like to lift the wheel up, clamp it, and then drop it back. What this does is it moves the pillars all the way to the top, allowing me to access the motor bolts that I need to remove the motor from the wheel. Now before we move the motor bolt to the wheel, we want to make sure the motor cable can be free. In order to do so, we need to release this battery pack as well as these 4 Phillips to release that motor cable out of the wheel. Now, in order to remove the cable, we'll first release this clamp. This allows the battery to move freely out of the way. In order to not put any stress on this battery cable, I do like to put the top 3 screws back in, not fully, but just secured. This way the battery will not fling. With the cable now removed, you can now access all 4 motor bolts. So now that you've removed the motor bolts, you can now slide the wheel forwards. Now it's good to have a surface like this in front, because what we'll do is we're going to rotate this and place it flat facing the back. So in this scenario, we are actually changing the tire from the knobby to the street tire. This is for a customer request, and therefore I will also show you how to actually remove the tire and put it back with the tire spoons in this video. So first things first, we want to remove all the air from the tire. You can do this with the valve core removal tool. Now with this rim, it seems to have come off the bead very easily. So the next step is to use your tire spoons to pry it over the bead. Once you've released the single side, we can go in and remove the tube. Now typically I use the tire spoon just to start it, and with these rims you can pull it off by hand. Now when putting on the new tire, you'll start with one side at an angle. You can squeeze it with the hand and kind of thread it over the rim. And again, you can use the tire spoon just to finish it off. Now that one side is on, we can go back and put the tube into the wheel. Now I like to go around and make sure that the tube sits inside the rim and that nothing is poking out. and then go in and to align the tire valve. Now this can be somewhat difficult if you have a fairly new tire. Once the valve pokes out, now you can go in and put in the rest of the tire. So again, if you can try to start with one side, and you can see how I pull and squeeze down to start it. And you can kind of work your way around. And then for me personally, I like to use the tire spoon just to finish it off. Now, as I insert this tire spoon, you just want to insert just over the edge. What you don't want is you don't want it to go too far out and then dig, because when you go digging is when you'll break the tube. So just bring it to the edge and try to round that corner. Now this will reduce the probability of you pinching that tube. If you feel it getting very tight, you'll want to push this side down and squeeze it into the center of the rim to give you more room to play with. Do not try to force it with leverage. Now that your tire is fully in, we can inflate it and see what happens. Now sometimes, once you inflate a little bit, you want to go around and make sure that it is balanced. So usually I look at this line to make sure that it's equal all the way around. You don't want one side to be close and one side to be far, as this is where you get the lumps in your tire. So to me that looks pretty good. We're going to continue pumping it. So once you've pumped up the tire to your proper PSI, do a last double check to make sure this ring has an equal distance between that and the rim. I like to do a check on both sides just to make sure that it is properly seated. Once that check is done, you can now start putting the wheel back into the body. So now that we're getting ready to put the motor back into the wheel, I like to remove these battery boxes, as we're not going to be doing any more acrobatics with this wheel for now. This way I can move the battery out of the way, just to the side here, and then we can slide the motor in and align everything. So with the motor bolts on Begode wheels, you'll notice that this distance between these two holes is larger than these two holes. And so what you want to do is, the one with the smaller distance is the vertical, and the one with the larger distance is the horizontal. So as you're about to get ready to put this wheel in, I'd like to align the holes properly in a rectangular fashion this way before inserting it into the wheel. Now once you're inserting into the wheel, I tend to look from the top. You'll want to align the holes on the pillar to the holes on the motor. And then you don't want to forget your spacer. So now with the spacer, it's three sides square, one side round. Now, if you look at it carefully, the round side will be on top and the three squares will be on the sides and the bottom. Now, this cutout is for the motor cable area, so just make sure that you do it in this orientation. Now, I like to align it as best as I can. And then I'll take the 5mm screw that we took from there a while ago. We'll put it back in, but I usually thread these by hand. Now once you have all 4 bolts threaded in by hand, we can push it up a little bit more and we can continue threading them. So, however, I don't want to tighten them just yet because I need to flip over the wheel to install the motor bolts on the other side. before we tighten everything down. So this is just a temporary step right now. We're going to try to throw this motor cable here, resecure this battery before we do any acrobatics on the wheel. Now, make sure you get your spacer again. In this scenario, again, the two sides are the flat, and the bottom is flat, and the top is round. Now, it is a bit more difficult. This can be more difficult to thread the hole. So if you want to remove the battery pack in order to help you align it, you can do so. I'm a little bit more on the lazy side of the spectrum, so I tend to try to slide this in and align the holes from the top. Once I've aligned this one hole, I'll put a screw in it first. That allows me to find the other three holes by just rotating the plate. Once you have all your 4 screws threaded in, now I'll take my driver and drive them in. When putting on the bottom screws, just don't forget the spacer. So you want to lift the battery pack up, slide the spacer in, and then hand turn your screws in first before using your driver. Once everything's hand turned, you can use your driver to now tighten everything down. And that marks the end of the EX30 tire change. As you can see, it wasn't so bad.
Quick and easy.
They've designed it very well. The part that you save a lot of time is the fact that the motor bolts for the axle are very easy to get to. You don't need to unplug the phase wire, so you can leave the whole top intact, slide everything out, change the tire. Now, if you have never done a tire change on any EUC and you have one of these EUCs, I would try to convince you to give it a try. If you really don't feel comfortable, I won't force you. But do give it a try because it is really not that bad on this wheel.
On any Burgomaster or T4, they all are pretty easy.
They're all very similar. The same concepts, just a little bit different implementation. Yeah. So give it a try if you have one of these wheels.
Alright, so that's the end of our video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And you may also turn on the ding dong to receive notification of our latest content. We'll see you in our next video. Bye!